If you've been following what's been happening in global defense lately, you might have noticed that the oceans are suddenly a much bigger focus again, especially the North Atlantic. Toward the end of last year, the UK's Ministry of Defense quietly rolled out something called the Atlantic Bastion program, and at its core, it's all about dealing with growing Russian naval activity, particularly the kind that happens beneath the waves, where it's hardest to see and track. One of the most interesting ideas tucked inside this plan is something the British are calling a hybrid air wing. In simple terms, it's a mix of crewed and uncrewed aircraft working together to patrol, monitor, and protect large stretches of ocean. At first glance, it sounded like one of those long-term, far-off concepts that might not turn into anything tangible for years. But that assumption didn't last very long at all. Just a little over a month after Atlantic Bastion was announced, the Royal Navy revealed that it had already carried out the first flight of what may be the world's first truly autonomous, full-size helicopter. No pilot on board, no remote joystick flying it moment by moment, but a real helicopter making its own decisions in the air under supervision. That aircraft is called Proteus, and it represents a pretty major shift in how future naval aviation might work. Proteus is being developed by Leonardo, a well-known name in the helicopter world, and this isn't some modified version of an older aircraft. It was designed from scratch as an autonomous platform, part of a development effort that's been going on quietly for more than a decade. The goal from the start was ambitious: create a 1-ton helicopter that doesn't need a human pilot on board to do its job. While the full technical specs haven't been made public, we do know that Proteus is a serious machine. It's large enough to carry 2 standard NATO pallets, or haul up to 1 ton of cargo. That alone puts it in a very different category from the small drones most people picture when they hear the word uncrewed. On top of that, it has a modular payload bay, which means it can be quickly reconfigured for different missions depending on what's needed. That flexibility is a big deal. Depending on the task, Proteus can be fitted with anti-submarine warfare equipment, airborne early warning systems, or gear for moving supplies within a theater of operations. Its primary mission, though, is clearly focused on hunting submarines in rough and dangerous environments. To do that, it can carry tools like sonobuoys, magnetic anomaly detectors, and dipping sonar systems, all of which are essential for finding quiet submarines hiding underwater. If you look at Proteus from the outside, it still looks like a helicopter in the traditional sense. You've got the familiar rotor setup and overall shape, but one thing is noticeably missing. There's no cabin for people. Instead of seats and controls for a pilot, the interior space is filled with sensors, computers, and propulsion systems. Everything on board exists to support autonomous operation, rather than human comfort. Proteus was built by Leonardo and its partners at Yeovil, often referred to as the home of British helicopters. Inside the aircraft is a suite of sensors and computing systems running artificial intelligence and machine learning software. Leonardo hasn't gone into detail about exactly how those systems work, but the idea is that the helicopter can perceive its surroundings, process what's happening, make decisions, and then act on them without direct human input. One of the biggest advantages of that autonomy is the ability to fly in conditions that would normally make human pilots think twice. Proteus is designed to operate in high winds and rough seas, the kind of weather that often coincides with the most critical naval missions. By removing the risk to a human crew, the Royal Navy gains the freedom to send aircraft into environments that might otherwise be avoided. The first flight took place at Proteus Airfield in Cornwall, which serves as a satellite airfield for helicopters based at RNAS Culdrose, and is also known as the National Drone Hub. Details about the flight are limited, but the official description says the aircraft carried out a short test routine in which it controlled its own flight systems independently. All of this happened while test pilots monitored everything from the ground, ready to step in if something went wrong. As for what comes next, the roadmap hasn't been laid out publicly, but it's safe to assume that more complex and demanding test flights are on the way. Both Leonardo and the Royal Navy are aiming to see Proteus operating in real-world roles by the early 2030s. Beyond that, the helicopter is also being used as a flying testbed for other technologies related to vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, which could influence future designs well beyond this single program.